a demonstration we learn or teach here is you point to yourself and just repeat that, and notice how it feels. Right? And then you point to yourself and say this. Because in the subconscious, that is other reference. It's past reference, it's future reference. This is internal, it's present, it's here and now. This, this is this, that is that. So as we pay attention to these words we use, it can help us identify a lot of things. And Sean brought that up. I noticed when I was telling my story and I said that. It shut down, like you recognize these things.
Yeah, it's we identify beliefs in ourselves, and it's like, especially when we're telling our story or we're talking on camera, whew, boy, that can knock us off.
Yeah.
That that can knock us off when we identify those beliefs that don't work for us anymore, and time referenced words,
right.
Such Whitney was saying this, this is here. That is there, that is past, that is the future. I am here, this is here.
This is now.
And I love the word this. I love the word this so much because it's this. I am. All of it indicates self.
Mm-hmm.
Here now. And to identify me as that, there's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
There's a problem. And until I correct the problem, I will continue to have problems. And my body language is going to indicate the problem, which is confusing.
Yeah.
It's confusing to the people that you're communicating with, the people that you love. All it takes is being mindful to honor self and honor others.
Well, and it's as you identify or notice, and you're saying that, it's part of being that other reference we just talked about that is not you.
Oh, not
It
at
is.
all.
This is who you are, and if you're being outside of who you truly are, it's going to be a that scenario, or you start to believe it's a this, and that's even worse.
Yeah.
Right. And as we're talking about this right now, we've referenced linguistics. We're talking about being able to monitor your linguistics on a conscious level. The reason why we get to do this is because while we're choosing to speak, right, 6% of communication is verbal, right? And so as we choose to use this form of communication, we are communicating subconscious. It's subconscious information. If I consciously chose to use every word that came out of my mouth, I would sound more like this. I wouldn't speak as I am speaking right now. And because I'm speaking right now, it's an indicator that what I'm choosing to say is subconscious information. So when we talk about monitoring your linguistics or the words you choose to use, we're talking about being able to consciously be aware of the subconscious programs that are going on inside your subconscious mind. This and that is one of the many ways that you can monitor the programs that are going on. It's just being an observer. And that's how simple it is. Sean told you the story about how linguistics transformed his pathway to purpose here at Matter, and it did the same for me. My whole life I've spent decades trying and failing miserably to find myself and find religion and take all of these different pathways to success that I wasn't successful at. And as soon as I locked onto the idea that all I had to do was observe myself speak and change the words that were hurtful to me in my subconscious mind. And as I chose to do that, the transformation began for me. It was something like Sean said, that was tangible, that I could consciously say, oh my gosh, this is working. And as I chose consciously to monitor my linguistic and just simply change the errors, make the simple corrections. When I said this and I pointed out there, right then say, you know what, hold on, this, not that, this, or whatever it was that I was choosing to correct. Words like but, can't, won't, don't. They don't process. They mean other things than what we choose to interpret them as, right? And so as we consciously observe ourselves, use these linguistics, these errors in our linguistics, and change them, it allows us to choose between two different programs. Recreate a positive, beneficial one, and compound and repeat upon said positive, productive program, or refortify by using the errors in our linguistics, the old programs that have become a detriment to our character and our beliefs in ourselves. And intelligence is not the things you know. It's the way that you have of knowing things. And one of these ways or pathways to success is just simply monitoring the words that you choose to use. And it just opens up a whole new paradigm of life that you've been unaware of. And it's just a conscious awareness, a state of conscious awareness. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
Well, and sometimes with the absolute truths, if I'm really struggling with believing something, instead of I am, it's could I?
Mm-hmm.
And then it goes to I could, right? So could I could, and then it becomes I am. Because I'm giving it permission. I'm asking a question with permission, and then I'm giving myself permission, and then I'm integrating it into an identity. And sometimes you get to meet people where they're at, or meet yourself where you're at, and take the steps to get there. And coulds a good one.
So real quick, we're talking about your conscious mind. Only conscious alters. Conscious chooses to alter the subconscious programs that are going on. Conscious alters, right? Conscious is the keyboard. The subconscious is the mainframe sitting on the ground. And until you alter your linguistics and change the words that you use, you're not consciously allowing permission for the information, like in the law of reverse effect, which is already stored in there, to come up. The only information that's coming up is information that's been prior approved by the conscious through your old programs, through your environment, as Sean talked about. And now we're getting to consciously choose to monitor our linguistics, simply change some of the words that we use, and then, like they said, permission, allow. These are words that you're literally consciously choosing for that information which has been processed already.
This
It just
literally
isn't coming up.
becomes Google with a search bar. And the more
Right.
stuff you search, it's going to program to you. So your subconscious is the world of Google. Your conscious is the search bar. And depending on the different things you search, guess what it's going to pull up? You start talking about stuff, and Alexa knows. So guess what she's going to start advertising?
Yeah.
That's literally how
That's a
our
great
brains
example.
work.
I have a little
That is
pot
a
of
great
gold
example.
theory with that. The little pot of gold theory with it. You know, I talk about it sometimes with this subconscious and subconscious, and how like I have this pot of gold, if you will, and it's the subconscious, right? And if everything if it's negative, like all the crap in the subconscious is negative, then what's going to come up to conscious?
Negative.
So you got, 3/4 of the data that's in it that's negative, and 1/4 of it that's positive. What's most likely to come up to conscious? Negative, right? And so we get to work on creating more positive memories, and we can do this in many different ways. We can do this in being more positive in the moment. We can do this by doing, going to events and doing things that are super positive, where you'll typically be positive, and also by doing like future guided imageries, where very positive things are taking place. So we have a lot of ways a lot of different ways to affect the subconscious, including our linguistics, and so over time, maybe not immediately, but over time, the little pot of gold has more positive in it.
Right.
So what comes to conscious? Likely to be more positive. So I did want to share a story, if I can, about the word could.
Please.
And linguistics.
I don't know, can you?
I could.
Okay.
So I was, like I said, when I got to treatment, one of the tangible things for me to be able to make some change was linguistics. Okay, so I grabbed hold, and I was just super focused on this integrity thing. I was super focused on the linguistics, and I began using the language being taught, the linguistics, And it was really weird because I'd hear stories, and some of the things that sometimes in treatments when we're dealing with people with substance abuse issues, is they're used to getting their way their whole life. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes, you know, the clinicians or staff, they get to challenge some parts about you. And so they'll, you know, say no. Mm-hmm. For no reason.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Well, for big reason, though. I kept using the linguistics, and it just got really weird for me because everything I asked was yes. Mm. And I even started thinking about it. I'm like, I couldn't figure out why do they keep saying yes to me? Like, and I pay attention, and I started paying attention to, I use the word could a lot. Like almost every probably time I ask for anything, I use the word could. And it got to the point where there was a situation that I wouldn't ask permission because the individual was when an individual was next to me that just got told no, where there was every reason to tell this person yes, right? And I was just about to ask the same thing he was, and so I'm like, oh, I'm definitely not going to ask in front because I'm afraid they'll say yes. And so, yeah, and it helps me a lot too. Like using the word could, using the word may, identifying, you know, my thises and that's as I'm talking, being aware of the things I say. You know, even in this conversation here, you know, there's a certain percentage of what I'm aware of that I have said, and I've identified a few things that I get to take a look at.
Right.
and that's the important thing.
It's absolutely the most necessary thing. Permission. Permission is absolutely the most necessary thing. I mean, among all kinds of other most necessary things in this material, still, if you're beginning this material, if you're finding a way to begin this material that we're offering you, you get to start allowing conscious permission to change, to believe in yourself. Permission, right? Conscious alters. Otherwise, you're still just going to be the same person that you've always been. That you're redefining and forming and fortifying programs that you've ran on for however old you are, right? And so until you consciously choose to allow permission for other information, look, when you go onto a car lot and you're ready to go buy a car, do you buy the first car that just looks really nice and stands out to you? Is that a well-informed decision?
Yeah.
Is that a well-informed decision? Or do you get as much information about the car as you can? Do you buy a car? Do you get a Carfax and do you take it to a mechanic and then, you know, maybe get some advice from people that have experience in that arena? Do you get as much information about the $35,000 decision you're about to make, or do you go on whim? And how often when you go on whim are you disappointed, right? We're talking about making a well-informed choice.
I don't know, just the way you said that, like, to me, the way we've been talking, it's not wrong. It's the way we learn how to do it. Is there a more beneficial way to help you and a more beneficial way to talk? Absolutely. Is it wrong to say, can I? It's not wrong. Is there a more beneficial way to say this, to communicate effectively, to affect yourself? Absolutely. I think and being aware of those programs, but I don't think it's not wrong. The way we've been living is not wrong. Some of us just didn't know any better yet, and there's a more beneficial way to speak, to use linguistics, to learn about ourselves. And the more you know, the more there is to know and to learn and to continue to grow. Right. And I believe it's truly important that the things we were doing weren't wrong because it's the best we had. It's what we were taught. It's what we did with what we had. Still seeking these different ways out and new ways of being and talking, and we get to continue to learn and grow, and to me that's kind of part of the purpose of life.
Yeah, I think really it's more about is this working or is this not? You know, and then if it's not working, you know, we can choose something different. We can begin to choose into things that do work, that do lift us up, that do help heal us, help us understand ourselves more. Absolutely, I agree with you 100%. It's, you know, we get so wrapped up in, I think in man's views of what is right, what is wrong, that oftentimes, there's a lot of judgment that comes with either right or wrong, and it's judgment or perception of judgment on ourselves and what others think of us that's gotten us into ugly place, that's assisted in getting us to ugly places that we've been. I agree with you 100%. You know, the granting permission, you know, we live our lives and there's purpose behind us living our lives. And we go through all these experiences and there's purpose behind every bit of these experiences, whether they were, you know, full of light or some darkness in there. All these are our experiences. They're ours. All of it is in, and I'm not even generalizing when I use the word all, or even there. It's all of this data that we've experienced is in the subconscious.
Yep.
It is ours. We get to use it because it's ours. And for some of us that have found ways to get ourselves into really difficult, horrible situations with horrible beliefs that don't work for us, and having life problems that don't work for us, it takes the data that we have inside. It takes this data that we get to grant permission for to overcome, to learn, to grow, to succeed. It's ours. We get to use it.
Right.
We just get to learn how to grant permission for this data to come to conscious, because it's ours.
You guys talk about programs all the time, or programming, or I mean, it makes it sound like you think I've been taken over by the evil computer monster or something like that. What am I possessed? What are y'all talking about?
Well, you said it really. I mean, not computer necessarily, but you did describe it really.
I'm going to cut my question out, so you'll have to elaborate.
Okay, so I think we should all get to take a turn on this. Describing programs or listening to other people describe it in my past has been a little bit difficult for me to like grab onto and identify a program. We have a Gestalt programs, and we learn these. We are programmed from our caregivers, people that teach us, and I talked about this a little bit earlier. Our clergy members, our teachers, our parents, our aunts, uncles, our brothers, our sisters, the environment and society we're living in. You know, we were just downloaded all of these crazy beliefs, crazy things, ways of interpreting things. Okay, and so these programs. I give you an example of a program. Okay, so. I start getting yelled at. I start crying. That's a program. Well, where did I learn that program? I learned that program from one point my dad yelling at my mom and my mom was crying. So what do I do now? There was no conversation there, not verbal. There was nothing other than, oh, that's what happens when you yell at somebody. You cry. And her reasons for crying as that happened, I don't know whether it was to get out of it, because so my dad would feel bad and stop. I don't know. It sounds highly likely that was it, just because it's what I remember and interpret. There's so many different programs. You know, we talk about, what is it? Fear. Like
Fear
we
of
have
falling.
we have two fears. We are pre-programmed when we come to this earth, this existence, with two fears: the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. Outside of those two, it's all programmed.
Well, and that's, if
Oh.
you really take a second to sit back and think about that, that's every other belief, every other fear we've literally created for ourselves. That really made me stop and think. I'm like, oh wow,
I mean, we could even really demonstrate another one. Why did you catch that? Why? I don't even get it.
So it wouldn't hit me. I don't know.
Huh? It could be because that was programmed for you to do when something's thrown to you.
Right. Yeah,
There's a program,
it's very true.
and that's just very simple. And like, we have some programs that definitely do not work for us. You know, you're talking about being in prison. I was in prison.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Some of the programs that we reinforced there,
Oh yeah.
you know, see no, hear no, speak no
Yep.
evil, no about anything else, nothing. And that was the program we made. Somebody's getting stabbed down the hall? No.
Yep.
No, we shut that down. Even that program of shutting those things down.
Not like, hey, go help rescue that person
No.
or intervene or do something right. It's like, look the other way.
well, and still that plays off your limbic system. It's either fight or flight. You know,
Yeah.
you become that way. You change, literally to survive in that environment, because your
Right.
environment has a huge effect on your programs and the way you get programmed. That also intertwines with the limbic system.
Well, I really like the way that you just brought up the limbic system, because I was going to talk about literally how you get programmed, and that's through a process by which one of your three brains, and she brought up the limbic system, encodes a chemical composition on the dendra that is fired on the dendrites. The dendrites run through your whole central nervous system. If you put your nerve endings end to end, you'd wrap around the Earth and Jupiter 6 times. I mean, that's how much nerve you have in your personal body. So when we're talking about a limbic system response, you have an event that happens in your life that's traumatic, like a prison stabbing, which is, you know, if you can only imagine, is pretty traumatic. And you go into this fight or flight, feed or breed scenario, and a chemical composition is released by your limbic system that through the dendra is chemically encoded upon your dendrite. These emotions are chemically encoded upon the dendrite and wired throughout your central nervous systems. And when you have similar events that happen thereafter, and Sean talked about a gestalt of emotion. A gestalt of emotion is a chain link of events that through your environmental programming or through your environment, these events that transpire throughout your life create a chain link or a gestalt of emotions where this same pattern of chemicals is encoded upon your central nervous system firing order, and it creates your responses to situations. So I could have a traumatic event when I was 8 years old, okay? And throughout the course of my life have similar chemical responses from my limbic system, and they would store files in those portions of my subconscious, creating a program. And so now at the age of 35, when I have some kind of a situation that could be similar to the situation when I was 8 years old, my chemical composition is going to be fired through and wired, and nerves that fire together wire together. So you have these programs, these central nervous system firing sequences that you are no longer in conscious control of. That is a program. It's happening automatically, just like you blink, just like you breathe, just like your digestive tract works, just like your circulatory system works. It's all automatic function. And after a while, you lose the conscious ability to choose in regards to an emotional response to a situation. So when I encounter a situation in my present that creates a feeling of anger, the only reason why I'm getting angry is because I'm referencing to a past situation in my life created by a program of gestalt, of emotional reactions. And that's what we're talking about here today, is that we're literally programmed. Our subconscious is literally running automatically, right? And these things in our present moment vicariously that are happening to us, the way that we choose to respond sometimes is not choice at all. It's just an automatic response because of the gestalt of emotions that have happened in our lives.
Still, you have choice.
Still, and that's what we're talking about, is using these techniques and these situations that Janie Marvin has created to afford yourself choice. Because due to the law of reverse effect, fortunately, your response is automatic. However, everything else has been processed. So you can consciously choose between your normal response, which you were programmed to make, or you can choose to respond differently.
And I'm wondering if everything that all the things that you just said, like, I'm wondering if when you actually came to understand that this is the case, that you were angry with yourself to some degree.
Oh my
Like,
God. Oh, because of my
your-
intensity
your-
there?
the
That's just my
intensity,
passion, man. I'm just super
And
passionate.
yeah, absolutely, it's your passion. There was no denying that with body
I
language.
get
and
super
tonation
passionate
and-
about this material because it's had such a transformative effect on my life
awesome.
through my ability to consciously choose, right? To come from where I have been to where I am now and how I feel about myself and what I think today and the way that I view my world today is two very opposite ends of a very dramatic spectrum. 14 years in prison, okay, programmed and juvenile hall before that, and parents' divorce, early childhood, and all of these things that have had a dramatic effect on the quality of my life. And being able to sit here today, now, and think and feel and be the way that I am very, very extremely passionate about it. So it's transformed my life. This material has helped me transform my life, and I stand upon that truth.